This is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy, your Olympic and Paralympic sport podcast. Great British Bosses is where we profile the men and women responsible for sport in this country. These are the personalities who manage budgets, often public money, encourage grassroots participation and oversee those medal moments at an elite level. Whether you enjoy your sport in the Municipal Sports Centre, a world-class arena or stadium, or with millions of others in front of the TV or listening on the radio, these are the people who make it happen. I'm Michael.
I'm John, and in this episode of Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy, we're in Milton Keynes at the National Badminton Centre.
And I'm Adrian Christy, I'm the Chief Executive at Badminton England.
Firstly, Adrian, Chief Exec of Badminton England. What does it mean? What do you do?
Well, I have a very privileged role here. I have the opportunity to lead and develop and grow the sport of badminton, predominantly across England, but we also are the custodian of the Olympic and now Paralympic programme on behalf of Ireland, Scotland, Wales and ourselves in England. So based here at the National Centre, we have the Olympic programme for Tokyo with us right now.
How on earth do you become a chief exec of a national governing body?
Well, with a lot of determination. I've started out my career in sports development 20 plus years ago, and very quickly realised on that journey that a chief executive role within an Olympic sport was my goal. And I took on various roles working in local authority sports development through to the National Coaching Foundation, which is now UK Coaching. I had some regional roles, some national level roles. Then I worked for the Lawn Tennis Association, where that gave me an amazing insight into working with volunteers, which governing bodies are very much our lifeblood. And then I moved to squash and was National Development Director for England Squash before taking the opportunity to come here 13 years ago, actually. And even to this day, my dad used to give me a bit of advice, which was to wake up happy every day. And every day I'm here, I wake up happy. It's an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing organisation. We work with some brilliant people and we do some really good things.
Be honest, were you a badminton fan before you got the job?
I used to. Everyone says this. I used to play badminton at school. Everyone tells me I used to play badminton at school. But I didn't play an awful lot. I mean, football, golf, and tennis are predominantly my sports. But I used to play a fair bit of badminton. I played a lot of sports at school, and badminton was one that I played. But my predecessors here are far more accomplished players than I ever will be.
You any good now?
No.
I guess when you say that you've been in sports development for 20 years, you've seen a massive kind of sea change, haven't you, over that time? Because obviously 97 was the impact of lottery money. We had that terrible Olympics Great Britain had in 96 at Atlanta. And suddenly there's been this launch pad and more investment.
Yeah, and I think it's... I think we should all be very privileged. Never take anything for granted. The fact that we get so much public money invested into sport, whether that be grassroots sport or world class sport. But it's no coincidence that we were very poor as Great Britain in Atlanta, and we were exceptional in Rio. I still think there's this huge amounts of opportunities now for kids. I remember when I was at school, and all I ever wanted to be was a professional player, and whether it was a footballer or a tennis player, and those opportunities were just not available like they are to young people nowadays. And I look at the investment that comes into sport that creates those opportunities, even when there's so many things that particularly young people can do outside of sport, that there is still millions and millions and millions of people that pick up a racket, kick a ball, throw a ball, or do whatever they do in the world of sport. And so much of that is possible because people buy lottery tickets, and a huge chunk of that investment comes to our sector.
Well, we'd like to talk about the participation event and the fact that you get funding from Sport England, but UK Sport. But you mentioned Rio. That day when you found out UK Sport were removing your Podium funding after Chris Langridge and Marcus Ellis had won a bronze medal, the first men's doubles, British medal in history. How was that feeling for you and your wider team?
It absolutely floored us. I mean, even to this day, I will always say that it was a wrong decision. It was a bad decision. The information that was used to determine that outcome, I think was ill-informed. It was a bad move, and we were floored. I mean, I sat in this room and took the phone call from UK Sport with our performance director and couldn't really believe what we were being told, and immediately went outside and grouped the players and the coaches together and told the players, and then immediately after that grouped the staff together and told the staff, because we knew this was going to be a big story, because Marcus and Chris had done so well, and it was flooring. But you can't grieve on decisions like that forever, and I will always maintain, and was part of a group of sports that championed and lobbied hard for sports. Every Olympic and Paralympic sport, I believe, should receive a baseline level of funding, and I'll always maintain that, because if you cut sports off, it's very, very difficult for them to then recover and ever get back on, because the investment is so great that enables so many good things to happen. It's difficult to catch up, but what I felt was really responsible for me in my role to do was to look then at, but how do we ensure this never happens again? How do we ensure that we develop our own self-sustainability, our own resilience, that should this ever happen again, we're better prepared for it? And people often say, you must have seen that coming. And I absolutely did not see that one coming. And I like to think that I've kind of often get a sense of what's going on around our sector, but I just didn't expect that. We came out of London. We wasn't in great shape when we came out of London. We had a bit of turmoil in the programme, and if at that point we'd have had our funding cut, I wouldn't have been able to argue as hard at that point as I did post Rio. But but it's 2.5 years on now. We're in good shape going towards Tokyo. We've got Paralympic investment as well. Badminton England have been able to generate more of its own resources, that we've been able to divert some of that money into the Tokyo programme. And we've got 8 players that are currently on track to go to Tokyo next year. So we're recovering still, but I think there's still a fair bit of vulnerability around it, actually. When
you took that phone call, what was the impact potentially going to be? Were we talking about jobs? Were we talking about the fact that group might not be able to go and compete in the next Olympic cycle? Were you thinking, I've made a huge mistake here, my head's on the line?
All of that, I guess. I mean, I think the one thing, I don't think anybody in here made a mistake. But you don't. How do you win the first ever men's doubles medal for Great Britain, and not believing that you made a mistake, and with a group of players that were approaching their peak? So for us, then looking ahead to Tokyo, we always felt that this was a step towards it. But no, it was all of those things. I mean, it wasn't just about the players being able to compete at the next games. It was actually about whether the players compete at the World Championships that were coming up in the next few months. It was that devastating. And we lost 33 members of staff. We lost 12 players. We had a programme of 24 athletes. We lost 12 of them overnight, literally left us overnight. We lost coaches. And that was then the rebuilding exercise, that we had to get all of that out of the way, as difficult as it was for so many people. It was the one thing that I always say is that there are decisions that people take about whether they do or don't invest in programs, and there's not always the thought, I believe, that the consequences, the wider consequences, take £4 million away from badminton. That's the decision. If you actually say, if we take £4 million away from badminton, what are the consequences to so many things? Well, we're left to pick up those pieces. And as I say, we did, and we are still doing to some extent, but we're in good shape now.
Have UK Sport got it wrong then, chasing the medal moments? There's this statistic, isn't it, that every medal in Rio cost £500,000. Was £500,000 for Marcus and Chris and a bronze medal value for money? Or
totally value for money. Totally value. I mean, I think, and I think there are some sports that can absolutely see a spike in participation as a consequence of a medal moment. We saw that. I mean, we saw a 245% increase in London alone in the number of people playing within 2 weeks of Chris and Marcus having that medal put around their necks. Amazing immediate impact. So I think I firmly believe that world class achievement can drive participation. I firmly believe that. So no, I don't think it's a waste of money. I think it's I think where we probably have gone too far. I think we have to be careful to set our expectations so high. His number 2 in the medal table was pretty astonishing, really, pretty extraordinary. I think if we believe we can keep doing that, or even go one better than that and top the medal table, I think you could be chasing something that might ultimately fall flat. And I think for a nation the size of Great Britain, or an Olympic movement the size of Great Britain, to do what we're doing is quite extraordinary. But I think it would be equally extraordinary if we were consistently in the top 5. So I just think that there's probably where I do think they've gone wrong is that too much money has been invested in too few sports, meaning that too many sports are being sidelined or not even getting any funding at all. And if you're ever going to be number 2 consistently or number 1 in the medal table, you need your medals from more than 3 or 4 sports.
Absolutely.
But I think I can't sit here on one hand and say that it's not money well spent, when on the other hand I'm also saying that we've done some extraordinary things since Atlanta in '96.
So you've set yourself another medal target of 1 at Tokyo, and then obviously more with para badminton, which is in the Paralympics for the first time. Reasonable estimation, because we saw how brilliantly your guys did, and we talked about it on Anything But Footy at the European Games in Minsk, and what a fantastic achievement the guys did winning those medals. But of course, the powerhouse of badminton, as you were about to tell me, is Asia.
Yeah, and it will be incredibly tough in Tokyo, and Rio was incredibly tough, and London was incredibly. The Olympic Games the Olympic medals in badminton are the crown jewels. That's what everybody wants. It's what everybody's preparing for, and we are no different. But we also know the scale of the challenge every single time we step on court. China and Thailand now, Indonesia, Malaysia, India, huge obstacles for us to get across. But our job is preparing our players to be the very best they can be, and we go on court believing that we can win. We go on court believing we can compete, and you get the reward when I was very, very lucky to be in Rio and watched every one of Marcus and Chris's games in Rio, and the belief that those boys had every time they stepped on court. And we beat the top Danish pair, we beat the top a top Chinese pair to get to where we got to. Just incredible. So we know we can do it. It's not very easy, is it? But in world class sport's not easy.
And just a quick word before we move on from funding. Obviously, the Prime Minister confirmed last week that you were getting para badminton was going to get a share of £50 million, and that investment has been put into the government, obviously via UK Sport.
Yeah.
I have to bring up the B word, Brexit. Has there been any guarantees as a sport or a wider sport, or you talk to your colleagues in other NGBs about the funding being maintained post Tokyo?
No. In fact, it's only around now we're starting to have some conversations with. In fact, this week I'm meeting with UK Sport to understand what the themes around and how the investment principles for the Paris cycle will work, and then later in the year we'll find out a little bit more about how it will work with Sport England. I just think, it's way beyond my pay grade, I think, to try and understand what on earth will happen with Brexit and the impact on sport. But I think, we hope that, particularly because sport is so well funded through the individuals in the street that this is lottery cash that invests in us, that will at least be maintained, and similarly we hope that Exchequer will, because I think the one thing that happens, and we've seen it this year with things like Cricket World Cup, Netball World Cup. We've seen it with the Football World Cup last year. We may see it with the Rugby World Cup over the next few weeks. When something brilliant happens in sport, it lifts the nation. And whatever side you're on with Brexit, and we're not here to talk about politics, but whatever side you're on with the Brexit debate, people want to be lifted, and sport lifts people. And and I'm a West Ham fan, and we're flying high right now, so I'm way above the cloud. I'm way above the clouds. But those things are those special sporting moments are what we all aspire to deliver, that keeps us away from some of the noise. And I think government genuinely realise that investing in sport is a good thing for the nation. Whether you're whatever sport you follow, whatever your preferred sport is, it always makes the nation feel amazingly good about itself.
So we've talked a lot about money there, and you've talked about sporting glory and I guess the wider remit of sport. So talk about your organisation. Yes, it's great to deliver a bronze medal on a wonderful afternoon in Rio, but badminton is such a huge participation sport. You mentioned right at the start, we all play it at school. There's people playing it up and down sports halls. Is that part of your remit? What is your remit here? What are your roles, responsibilities?
Well, we have three very, very clear objectives. So our first one is to get more people playing badminton. We want badminton to be one of the nation's most popular sports, and there's 4 million people play our sport every year. Just over 1 million play at least twice a month. So we're in great shape. There's lots of 24,000 courts all around the country, being filled by tens of thousands of people every day. So getting more people doing that is important to us. Winning medals at World Olympic and Paralympic level is another key objective for us. But then increasingly more important is about our financial self-sustainability. And so the commercial program here, which is a big part of the work that I do, is about generating the income that allows us to do the more people playing and more medals. So we will never veer too far away from it. How we do it is always quite, that's the really interesting part. But actually what we do will be quite consistent. So, more people in the context of participation, more opportunities for people to see badminton, more people get excited about the sport, more major events held here. We have our All England Championships that are, the big blue ribbon event in the world of badminton happens, in Birmingham every March, and those inspirational opportunities to encourage and excite more people to play badminton is a big part of what I do.
So what are you going to do differently then to develop your sport and the proposition of badminton?
Well, I think I've thought long and hard about when I reel off stats that show how big a participation sport we are. There's always this, but how do we get bigger? How do we do more? And we're taking a very, very different approach. And I'd like to, particularly probably at this point, thank Sport England for their belief in this, that they're helping us to invest in a different approach to sports participation. And I've thought long and hard for quite some time that I think sport is, or governing bodies particularly, are very traditional in the way in which they go after people that play or they might want to play their sport. And we're no different to that. I used to do this 20 years ago. I'd rock up at a school with a bag of rackets or whatever, and I'd get kids excited about playing tennis or badminton or whatever it might have been for half an hour. Then I move out and some guy turns up and he might have 30 trumpets, and we're not all of a sudden going to turn this school into an orchestra. But the reality of it is that's how you got your sport in front of young people. And now people generally, not just young people, are connected 24/7. And I don't think governing bodies, I certainly can only really speak for us, have ever really embraced technology to engage people in a very personalised way, in much the same way. How do you Spotify or how do you Amazon sport in the same way, where you've got these brands that not only know what you're buying, but they're serving you up every single minute of the day new content, new offers, new products. How does sport move into that world? And we will still do the traditional let's get in front of kids in school, because when your kids are locked behind the school gates for 6 hours a day, there's a huge captive audience there. But your captive audience is also at the end of a telephone or the end or a mobile phone or whatever it is, social media, and we have to move into that world. And so I guess it's about, I often challenge ourselves on how can we be more relevant? How are we really meaningful and personalised to people that might have an interest in playing our sport? And that's a big shift now, and that's a big opportunity for badminton to start moving into.
And you mentioned about the traditional side of sport governing. How difficult is it then for you to go to Sport England and say, look, I've got this really good idea and I want to try something different?
I think right now Sport England have been amazingly supportive. I mean, I think we all understand the scale of the challenge of getting people active, particularly young people. I mean, it's the health of the nation is incredibly important to us all, and part of the privileged position that we hold in sports is that we can play a small part in influencing what people do and how they do it. Sport England are one of the holders of some helpful resources, but have the same objectives. So I think I approached Sport England with this idea of this almost retail approach to sports participation, and they completely embraced it. So that's just the start of that journey, and we've seen some great successes of our digital strategy of how we engage new members, how we engage more ticket purchasers, and we've seen big growth. The growth of the revenues associated with those has been part of our recovery from the UK sport decision in 2016. But I will now want to apply those principles into sports participation, and Sport England have been terrifically supportive of that.
So we're here at the National Badminton Centre in Milton Keynes. How many staff do you have? And tell people what, because we walked through past like it was a huge sports hall, and we looked down and saw the Olympic bronze medalists playing. And so you talk people through what, obviously, because I don't think can you just turn up here and have a look around? Or?
Yeah, you can. And it's an amazing facility, this, because so this is our home, this is our headquarters. So we have 72 staff that work for Badminton England. 40 something are based here. The rest make up our regional teams and coaches that work around the country. But you come in here, we have a hotel on site, which used to be a facility that was for players to stay in. It was only players and coaches that tended to stay in here. As players and as the sport professionalises more and more, and players are earning more and more out of the sport, players buy their own property. So we now have turned that into a commercial hotel. We have a gym on site that we manage ourselves now. We have conference facilities here. We have Table Tennis England that co-locate with us now, and we have about 100,000 people that come through this building every year. We have the National Badminton Museum based in here as well. So you will often see, you will see, because it's their training home, you will see the world-class program based here. But during school holidays, you'll see our junior camps based here. But if you, between 10 and 2 and between after 5 in the evening, you'll go outside and you'll see members of the public playing a lot better than I certainly can. But what's so unique about here is that, if some of the squad are away and they're travelling in major tournaments, we've got some of the younger players that may be in a training block here. You'll also see members of the public playing alongside world-class athletes that are training, and it's quite a unique mix. Excuse me, I don't know too many world-class facilities or certainly national facilities where I don't know too much about St George's Park, but I wouldn't have thought the Dog and Duck will be playing the Red Lion alongside the England football team training. But you get that here, and it makes it a pretty special environment at times. And when we always involve the members when we're doing an Olympic send-off or Commonwealth Games send-off, or we get a homecoming when the boys won the medal, Chris and Gabby have won world championship medals in a couple of years ago. We always want to involve the public and the members of the facility, because we want them to feel that they play a small part in making those sorts of things happen.
And so for people listening to Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy that maybe seen Chris and Gabby at the World Championships, maybe watched a bit of the Commonwealth Games, the Olympics, but they don't know, what are these elite badminton players doing for the other 3 years, 50 weeks outside of Tokyo 2020?
They're trying to get to Tokyo 2020. I mean, I guess we're very similar to sports like tennis or golf, where players will be competing pretty much every week of the year. I mean, our group here will spend the top group, the Olympic group, will probably spend 6 months a year in Asia now, because the world tour, it's a global tour. The All England is the top event as part of that tour, but there are 27 tournaments just in the World Tour, and then there's European events around that. So our group are constantly touring, and in fact, one of the biggest challenges that we have is getting the players back here for training blocks and a bit of rest and recuperation, and before they go again. But they're on that World Tour constantly. We have World Championships every year where we don't have an Olympic Games. We have European Championships every year. We now have the European Games, which happens every 4 years as well. So, and obviously Commonwealth Games, which we did amazingly on the Gold Coast, and we're very much looking forward to Birmingham 2022 as well. So they don't stop. And our Olympic, we start Olympic qualification on the 1st of May, and we go through to the 3rd of May, I think it is, next year. Before we even get close to understanding who's going to be going to Tokyo. So it's very competitive. We've got Marcus and Lauren, we've got Chris and Gabby as an example, pretty much head to head to try and qualify. And if they both get in the top 8 in the world, one's is 8 in the world and one's just outside. But if they're both in the top 8, they both go, and that's clearly what we want to do.
And how are you identifying the talent? Because we've been on this Olympic Paralympic beat for nearly a decade. And to be honest, we've been talking about the Adcocks and some of the other names that we've mentioned for that decade. Who are the next generation? Where are they coming from? Are they playing down there at the moment?
Yeah, they are. So I mean, mixed doubles tends to be the event that we've probably become best known for. And Marcus and Chris obviously got a men's doubles medal, but probably since Gail Ems and Nathan Robertson in Athens in 2004, mixed has seemed to be the sport where we've predominantly achieved. We've got Ben Lane, Jess Pugh are down in the hall at the moment. They're having a great season. They're not on track for Tokyo, but they're absolutely in our sights for Paris and beyond, for a young pair of early 20s. So they're in great shape. We've got great men's doubles pair, Ben Lane, Sean Vendy. And younger players that go into our junior national champions, young players like Estelle van Leeuwen, really exciting young talent for the future. So for us, it's building that conveyor belt of talent that we, the top group, are constantly being pressured by the group coming in below them to move them out the way to allow them to come through. And we're just about to start an even broader talent search that will go to every corner of the country, and really nurture that young talent at a regional level before they start to get their eyes set on Milton Keynes, because this to us has to be the finishing school. This is where you come here when you are truly world-class potential. And so we've got an exciting proposal that we'll be including as part of our, hopefully, Sport England investment over the next 4 years that will enable us to dig even deeper into that talent search.
Unfortunately, we're coming to the end, but a couple of things I wanted to say to you, because they kind of leapt out when I was doing a little bit of research, that more people play badminton than tennis in the UK, which is incredible. So you're the number one racket sport. In the UK. And also, a recent study suggests badminton had a positive impact on your brain. You need to be shouting about this.
Yeah, no, we do, don't we? Yeah, we do. And it does have a positive impact on my brain, because, as I say, I do wake up happy every day. But I think, it's a great. I mean, we see a lot of people here because we operate our own gym here. We see a lot of people that now they do a bit of a workout in the gym, but then they're wanting to get on court as well because you feel brilliant when you've played a bit of sport rather than just running on a treadmill or something. But yeah, it's there's some really great stories like that around the sport. But I think the participation element is we're it's one of my frustrations, I think, as much as anything else, is that we are such a big sport, but without we get so consumed by so many other sports, the kind of big spectator sports, and we're a nation that's totally obsessed with football. That sports like badminton, there's a lot of sports like badminton that really welcome opportunities to shine. And as I say, I think netball did that brilliantly earlier in the summer, and Commonwealth Games, sports like us emerge. Olympic Games, we get those medal moments, and that's really what we want to deliver more and more, because then people start to talk about us a bit more.
So do you need an Andy Murray to break through?
Well, I think what we need is more people like you guys to take an interest in us, because we have an Andy Murray kind of analogy. They're called Marcus and Lauren. They're called Chris and Gabby. They're called Ben and Jess. And we have players that are absolutely world class. So it's about getting the media to recognise and talk about them that enable sports to be catapulted into a different level, I think.
Couple of quick fire ones to finish then.
Yep.
Biggest success in your role?
Oh God, we've had a few. I think the biggest success, I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
I think the men's doubles medal was quite extraordinary. In fact, I'm going to give you three. The men's doubles medal was quite extraordinary. I think being recognised as the fourth most participated sport in the country was pretty special, given that was a real strategic objective. But I think an overarching one was really about how the sport has recovered, or is recovering from that knock in 2016, because it could have really flawed us for a long time. And somebody said to me once, it could take you 5 years as a sport to recover from that, and it may well do. Overall, it might do, but I think we've recovered a lot quicker than and that's testament to the amazing people that are around this sport. So
you've just covered the next question, which was biggest regret. I presume it was losing the funding.
Yeah. I think losing the funding, of course, was. I think I'll always be a bit disappointed that I think we didn't perform to our best in London. I think we had a great opportunity in London that we didn't really capitalise on. But I think the funding's was a huge knock for us.
Final message to people listening to Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy about badminton.
Get out and play. There's 24,000 courts, every single corner of the country. Get out and play. Come to the Arena Birmingham next March. You will see world-class badminton, and those tricks that you learn from some incredible athletes in Birmingham next year, you can then go and find a court and try it yourselves. It's an amazing sport.
Adrian, Christy, Chief Executive of Badminton England, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.